Well, we're going to critique our homework assignment, and I actually really love critiques because I think critiques are a good way for us to learn some of the concepts. We can see everyone's work, how hard they worked on their pieces, and it's a good way for us to reinforce everything that we did in our assignment. So the first thing I want to do is give you the grading criteria for this particular project. One of the points we wanted to try was use of an interesting arrangement of fabric. Now, on that one point,
Carol Nunley does a wonderful job of involving the whole class in the critique, even at a beginning level. In this fashion sketching for communication class, she is critiquing the work as a group. This is particularly effective for large classes or classes where you are teaching basic skills.
One of the criteria that we've been learning is the idea of just making a really beautiful composition. So since we're onto that, can anybody see one that they also agree that has a beautiful composition? Go ahead.
I like T-Race for the reason that it's really dark in the stripes, and because
Notice how Carol is going through the criteria for the assignment one by one. The students' responses to her specific questions about the criteria let her know if the class is internalizing the concepts.
All right, I want to show one thing here. We're talking about the idea of good, bold, honest contour lines. And I think that this one does that right here. There's a really boldness about this. But one of the problems with some of the way that we're doing the striping pattern is that when the stripe comes down to the edge and it curves around in this direction, something like this, if you can make it thinner in the back and wider on top, usually that gives it the illusion of wrapping around the form a little bit better.
When there is a point for improvement, it is important, especially at the introductory levels, to show how to do something better right on the spot.
Fully involved in it, you got excited about it. Is this true?
Well, at first I was excited, but
Carol involves students by encouraging student comments and asking questions of the student who created the work. Both of these techniques build trust and lead to a good level of student participation in her critiques.
So you got the point of the exercise. And I think just draping it around what resembles a body shape was a great idea. That was really clever.
Yeah.
Very smart idea. So I'm happy with it, and I think a lot of times when you draw something, it's just, you're always ready for the next drawing. You know, you want to try something new. So maybe you're just, that's what makes you such a good artist, is you're not satisfied with it. You want to push yourself.
And I like the position of the...
Inspiring students to do better is crucial to getting students to do their best work and also to building trust in the classroom.
I think you did great on this. I think everybody's getting the point of this exercise. And we did mostly everything we wanted to do as far as drawing what we see, not what we know, all of that kind of stuff. One thing is I wanted to point out that whenever you do a job and you're working for a client, they oftentimes give you ideas as far as how you could change things, fix things, correct things. So that's the purpose of a redo. So all of you, once we have our critiques, a lot of you come and redo things, so we have a whole wall and we start redoing our stuff. And that's how you learn, so I'm happy that you're doing that. But one of the things about the real world is that when you finish a job, you write an invoice, you get paid. So the way that you're getting paid is the grade on the back of the thing. So whenever...
Letting students know the overall acceptability of their work is very important, especially in the lower levels where students are still developing an eye for the basics.
Everybody as far as what your grade was, but I usually just do this. This is like your little paycheck. Okay.
You write the invoice then?
Okay, let's discuss our criteria for critiquing storyboards. The purpose of these
Jonathan Fung builds on the same criteria list throughout the semester in his still photo and storyboarding class for motion pictures and television freshmen. Sometimes he puts the criteria on a handout for students to refer to in their discussions. In this critique, the list of criteria on the whiteboard.
Here's some of the criteria that I want to look at. Of course, the technical aspects, exposure, depth of field, focus, and lighting. And then really look at the aesthetic aspects of storytelling, your shots, your angles, camera moves, even though they're stills, We can look at where you're panning, where you're tilting, where the zooms are coming in. Also composition, how everything is framed is very important. And then transitional elements as well as continuity. Okay, class, so let's gather around, come up here. Let's look at this first set of storyboards. And then I want you to break up into your small groups so then you can discuss the criteria on the board. Everybody come around.
Students have a chance to look at the work, then sit in small groups to critique it among themselves.
I guess.
Group work allows students to test out their feedback on each other first before having to speak in front of the whole class. It also encourages students to look at each other, not only to the teacher for feedback.
Glances between the female and these two.
Hopefully you guys had enough time to kind of just go over the criteria on the board. Let's all come around here. Yeah. So let's look at this first storyboard. Again, we should have the shots in place when we shoot our film, our final project this week. So let's look at the first shot here. The first
Jonathan
shot,
still directs the final critique, pointing out points well done and points for improvement.
the feet right here. Look here, that works really nice.
He includes students in the discussion, giving them a chance to share the ideas they have developed in their group
Well,
discussions.
sorry, back in the show, so
Yeah,
you
step
have
in
established
shot
where they
early
are
on.
with each other, or
We could do that. That could be a shot too. That could work
like
out.
have them out of focus in the background.
It could be out of focus. Put the depth of field on her. Blow them out. And then what we could do.
Jonathan's feedback is constructive, and he continues to be encouraging with these first semester motion picture students.
Thursday, have this worked out. Meet with your actors. Go back over. Come up with a shot list. And let's move on to the next storyboard. Everyone, let's come over to this one here.
Okay, I'd like to begin the presentation where you please recap where we are as far as the objective and positioning for the
Tom
project.
McNulty mimics the workplace in his advanced packaging design critiques. He expects everyone to have concise critique comments, guided by the criteria he has set out for them, but he retains his position as manager of the team.
Color. And also you've got bottle shapes. So I want to really pick a direction today. I know you have a couple of studies here for the display, and what we select on this table is really going to represent what you do in the display. Okay? So why don't you go ahead, start and take us through where we are in the project and the mood board and how that represents to the concepts you have on the table.
All right, so as you know, I'm doing a project, a skincare project for Nautica, and it's actually geared towards rowers, which is a sport, very old sport. I have some pictures from the mood board to show you where you have those thin boats and people row. And basically, the reason I chose Nautica and the reason I chose that company to be giving the skincare product, inspired by rowing, is because Nautica is a very high.
The students had time before class and during the students' presentation to formulate their critique comments. Tom could call on any one of them to comment.
Have all of you come over and make some comments. So if you would, please join us. Okay, Carissa, I'd like to start with you. Based on Pethia's criteria, what she put together, design objectives, mood board, which design is really working best for yourself?
I really like what's going on in 9. I think the addition of the third crew member gives it depth, and it works really well. I know last week he only had 2. I like the color. I think the color is very neutral for female and male audience. And I think if you wanted to include the red, the orange, you can add it in the caps.
Trevor.
I agree with number 9. The dark colors are pretty masculine though, but who says we can't break that rule? It could just be really slick and sophisticated for women. I like this logo. It's really strong, but it works the best when the bars are light and the rowers are dark. When they're the same color, it just bleeds into like a blob. But I also think that number 1 is interesting. It's really sharp, concise, and a neat little mark. And that orange, that shout of orange really stands out from the package. So maybe some orange could be brought into that.
Okay,
A little extra perk.
good comments. Virginia?
I agree with the logo.
You can tell by the level of participation in Tom's class that they know their input is valued. Tom does a very good job of validating their comments while making his own preferences very clear. Asking, "Do you agree?" is a genuine question and a time for him to clear up any misunderstandings or unclear points with the student.
Do you agree or disagree with those comments? What were you going to recommend as you walked in the room today?
I was going to recommend number 1 because I thought that I wanted to show the movement. I wanted to show that endurance, the strength, and
Okay.
that those 4 ores really talk about that precision. Then the colors, the orange, and also having all caps the same color, the whole thing, it just kind of makes it to me more upscale.
Okay.
So maybe I'm not final on the colors, but that was just.
Okay, before we make a final comment, there are some things I like to look at. I agree with all of what you've said. I also want to evaluate the usage of the Nautica brand. Also the placement, like looking at her mood board as we talked about, she had some visuals of the ore, which kind of comes back in the play of what she's recommending. As we look at the coloration, that's a very subjective area, but as an outdoor, she said at SPF and others, I think this is also a really strong direction color-wise. I think the lockup of what you've done with the Nautica, I think the name, Endurance, is a wonderful name. I think it really supports, and it's very clear what you're trying to say with the brand and support to that brand. So I agree with the comments. I think this is really probably your strongest direction, both from a design, and I'm going to go along with the recommendation on that. I think it's right on the mark.